Alabama getting set to take on Michigan, and a whole lot going on in Pasadena right now as the Crimson Tide try to win the Rose Bowl and get to the national championship game. We're going to hang out with Thom Abraham when we come back. But first, I want you guys to like and subscribe. Welcome to the Bama Football Tailgate Show. There he is, Thom Abraham, 97.7 ESPN the Zone, and the host of the Thom Abraham Show. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thom, there is so much going on, man, with this matchup between Alabama and Michigan. I feel like it's good versus evil with all of the sign stealing stuff with Michigan. And maybe they like that. Maybe they like coming in as kind of a hated squad.
That's kind of a reversal of roles, though, isn't it? I mean, I thought Alabama was the evil empire. I thought that Nick Saban was the bad guy and all of that kind of stuff. By the way, what I want to know is, here's my New Year's resolution, Mick. What do I have to do to get to be in the open, the opening video scene? For those that are watching on the YouTube channel. I mean, I see you with all your guests and enjoying a good time and all that kind of stuff. I don't see any Thom Abraham. I've been on this show every week for 2 years now, and I don't see any Thom Abraham. So my goal for 2024 is to, if I'm back on the show, and you fire me, but
no,
if I'm on the show, I'm thinking that maybe just a little blip in there, just a little clip in there, maybe I got to come down and be with you at the floor of Bama or sit by you someplace. I don't know, but it'd be nice to be included in the open at some point.
Look, I would love that, and that whether it's the floor Bama or Innisfree in Tuscaloosa or somewhere, we got to get in the same place, so that we can get that casual shot, like a 80s sitcom where we're just kind of sitting there and we look over,
There we go.
What was your favorite 80s sitcom?
80s sitcom. I've never been much of a sitcom. The last sitcom that I watched religiously was Seinfeld. I mean, I was a Seinfeld guy. I loved that. And of the more current stuff, because I can't even remember what was in the 80s. But I was a big fan of Last Man Standing. Loved Tim Allen in Last Man Standing. 2.5 Men. It's always entertaining for some reason. A little bit of that, and but that's kind of it. And then of course everybody loves Raymond. That's my life. I mean, everybody loves. My mother's even named Marie. I mean, that is my life. Is everybody loves Raymond, except for I don't have a big doofy brother. But that show was always a hit for me. So whichever one of those started in the 80s, Friends, whichever one of those started in the 80s, that would have been my 80s sitcom.
So I'm thinking Magnum PI, The A-Team, Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, well, Magnum
Different
PI
Strokes.
is not a sitcom. I mean, that was a crime drama, but crime drama. Hey, NYPD Blue. Hill Street Blues. Come on, man. I'm a big, Law and Order, the whole series, all of the Law and Orders, all of the FBI's, and all of the NCIS's, all of those. And then the greatest show on TV today, of course, Blue Bloods. Magnum PI. So Tom Selleck and Blue Bloods.
I love Tom Selleck. All right. Well, let me ask you this: when you heard that the players weren't using their iPads, were you as alarmed by that as me? And here's why. I'm going to tell you why I was. I don't see Nick Saban as the type of guy that's going, hey, we're just going to get rid of our iPads that all of you guys use to watch film, and you've been doing that since high school. Unless George Hilo, who used to work at Michigan, says, hey, man, these guys have a bunch of nerds that get on the IT and get into practice film, and they're going to know what you're doing. Or other coaches in the Big Ten, which have turned Michigan in constantly, can call and say, hey, Nick, you need to think about this. I guess it could be over over an abundance of caution, but I just don't buy that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Here's the part of this story that I find fascinating. There has been a lot of talk about, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really impact anything. Knowing the signs doesn't knowing what the opponent is doing. Yet and still, all of these teams, their practice facilities are shrouded with screens. You can't go to an SEC practice. The only SEC practices I ever was able to go to were basically Vanderbilt, with James Franklin was trying to build a program. He's like, come on down. I used to do my show from his practice with the practice going on in the background. And then you watch the game on the sideline. Signals don't matter. Signs don't matter, right? But yet, on the Michigan sideline, you got 4 kids holding up big, huge banners on hockey sticks, covering up all the coaches that are making the signs, or if they come have a timeout, they're wrapping them up into things so that nobody can see what they're saying. You got 15 kids on the sideline wearing different colored jerseys that are signaling in the plays. I thought it didn't matter. I thought all of this didn't matter. They're protecting the airspace over practices and make sure drones, aren't flying over the practice field and things like that. So I find it kind of comical that they say on the one hand that none of this matters, none of this technology matters. But then on the other hand, they go to great lengths to make sure that, everything is protected and in secret. I have found it interesting that some of the bowl games have been using the coach to player communication. And I don't know if they're doing that, by the way, in the playoffs. I don't think they are, but they've been using it in other bowl games. I'm sure that we're going to have it next year. I'm sure it'll be in place next year, and then that'll be the end of that.
You coached football before. Would it have helped you to know the signs that the other team was using?
Absolutely. I mean, especially from an offensive standpoint, knowing the blitz packages, knowing where the blitz is coming from. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that JJ McCarthy threw 17 touchdown passes before the Connor Stalions thing went down. And in the 5 games since the Connor Stalions thing, he only threw a couple of them. I think knowing where where your offense is going to be attacked is very important. And then I think defensively, from an offensive standpoint, if I knew what was going on the other side, I know where you can get those gashes and expose those teams. Now I know McCarthy was, dinged up down the stretch, and I also know they played better people down the stretch. But the numbers are staggering. And yes, absolutely, to know what's going on, it definitely gives you an advantage. There's no doubt about it.
18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions through the first 9 games, 1 touchdown after that.
There you go. You got the details.
I'm
paraphrasing, but yeah, you got it.
No, I got you. But my point is, they still won somehow, even though the guy's not throwing at all. I just don't know that would hold up in the SEC.
Yeah, that's the big question. And that's why when you look at the tail of the tape in this game, Alabama with a slight advantage offensively. Both teams score about the same number of points and so on. Defensively, Michigan is like number 1 or number 2 in all the major categories. I mean, they allow less than 10 points a game and so on. But again, you got to look at the schedule. You got to go back to the popcorn schedule that Michigan played. A couple of games in the SEC or in the Big Ten that were big games, the Ohio State game and the Penn State game. The rest of the schedule was just garbage. And so you wonder how those numbers are skewed, over the course of the season. But I think that's the big matchup here in this game is, will Alabama's offense be able to have success against a defense that is by numbers the best defense in the country? And, and how will they do it? And in Alabama's defense against an offense that, everybody talks about Michigan running the ball well. Well, Alabama actually runs the ball better than Michigan does in terms of total yards per game and so on. But, Michigan is not an explosive team. I think 5 touchdown passes over 20 yards. Alabama, 17 touchdown passes over 20 yards. Mm-hmm. So they're not explosive. If Alabama can hold Michigan, it might be the teens. It might be the low 20s at best. The question is, can Alabama outscore them? And they have been able to do that to everybody, especially the second half of the season. A lot of people want to talk to, point to the Iron Bowl. Well, what happened in the Iron Bowl? The Iron Bowl is a different animal, man. I mean, I think you so have to carve that game out. That is a totally different animal than anything else. I think, what you saw in Atlanta, it was more indicative of where Alabama is at this point in their season than what you saw in the Iron Bowl.